It is my privilege and joy that we can continue our Bible study about the book of Hebrews, and we have today the subtitle, The Message of Hebrews. Now we have seen that the epistle of the Hebrews has a purpose, and the purpose is to give a serious warning against the self-deception of sin. Because there is a danger that on the journey towards the heavenly Jerusalem, we should get lost. That salvation or the enters into the promise, the rest, the great reward could be missed. So here the epistle of the Hebrews addresses us with a strong warning, saying in Hebrews 3, 7-8, 12 and 13, "Wherefore, as the Holy Ghost says today, if you will hear his voice, harden not your hearts, as in the provocation in the day of temptation in the wilderness. Take heed, brethren, lest there be in any of you an evil heart of unbelief in departing from the living God. But exhort one another daily while it is called today, lest any of you be hardened through the deceitfulness of sin." Now it's very clear that sin is deceitful, and there is a great danger, even for the people of God, that they might give their heart in unbelief, so that today may pass and everything should be lost. So, who is the recipient of the letter? Now it's the Hebrews, but who are the Hebrews? Now the letter to the Hebrews draws a parallel with the story of the children of Israel, because the Hebrews are the children of God. Israel in the Old Testament and the church in the New Testament. And of course, Paul writes to the church in the New Testament, calling them Hebrews. Yes, because we all come from the same root. Christ was a Jew, he was a Hebrew, and all that follow him are Hebrews, because they follow him by faith. So he draws that parallel, the way of the children of Israel from the slavery of Egypt to liberty. So God promised them a land. They were in slavery by no choice for 400 years in Egypt. They came out with mighty power of God. They went through the desert and came to the borders of the promised land. But every time you have to go into something, you must be examined before entering. And so they had to be examined. And after 2 years of coming to the border of the promised land, they lost the exam and had to go back into the desert for 40 years, so that all those who were over 20 years old when they came out of Egypt had to die, and there were only 2 who entered. Why? Because of unbelief, as we will see. Now, he pictures the way of the believing Christians. We are all started on a journey that has an end, that has a goal, and that is to enter the promised land. And that is the second coming of Jesus. That's the goal. We started from the new birth. The church went through the Middle Ages, to the dark Middle Ages, as a way through the desert, we could say. And now they are at the borders of eternity, and the examination takes place. Now, we have been here before, but this time it is the last time that we are examined. Here the examination is final. That's why it is very fitting that we are studying this book at this time of our life on earth. So the book is addressed to the believers who are on their way from slavery to the city of freedom. The time is just before the end of the path, before Jesus comes. And since the church was not called without having a mission, we must know, why should they have all this work done? For themselves? For their own salvation? Of course not. According to the law of love, nothing exists for itself. And in Hebrews 13:15 we read, "By him, therefore, let us offer the sacrifice of praise to God continually, that is, the fruit of our lips, giving thanks to his name." Now, giving thanks to his name means to proclaim his name to the world. That's how the German translates and the Romanian. So, the fruit of our lips is to proclaim his name in this world. So, now the God of peace that brought again from the dead our Lord Jesus, that great shepherd of the sheep, through the blood of the everlasting covenant, make you perfect in every good work to do his will, working in you that which is well-pleasing in his sight, through Jesus Christ, to whom be glory forever and ever. Amen. So you see, the admonition, the preaching, the calling out to come and serve God is not for the purpose of ourselves, but for the purpose of giving that light further, of bringing the message to this world. So Jesus called his disciples to be the salt and light of the earth, and we are now that salt and that light that will give the final invitation and the final warning to this earth. Now we find that living here, the whole world must come to a final decision. They all must decide between truth and error, between freedom and captivity. They must decide between being dependent of God or being dependent of Satan and humans. The difficulty in this decision is that Satan sells the lie as the truth, and he sells the captivity as freedom, and that makes the decision quite difficult. Who now sells what to whom? In this process, they will play a crucial role, the children of God. They will be the light in the world. That's why we study this admonition, to make sure that we have got it right and that we can be put in front of the world to give to them the light. That light is the law of God that is unchangeable, the knowledge of our being, the basic functions of our being, and the basic needs that we live from. All those are absolute things. All those are unchangeable. All those are a scale for every information. And so while we will be put in front of the earth, in front of the whole people, we will have a message that no one can contradict. But not only a message that no one can contradict, but our lives will be a full sign. They will show that we are the free ones, that we are the ones in the truth, because we do that which is reasonable. We do that which is not, we do nothing out of fear. We do nothing out of irrationality, because in the truth there is liberty, and in the truth your mind can work well. While in prisonership your mind cannot work well. You do not what you want. You do what another tells you, because you're dependent on him. So we find in Revelation 14, from verse 6 to 11, this message that comes represented by 3 angels, by 3 messengers. And to whom do they preach? And I saw another angel fly in the midst of heaven, having the everlasting gospel to preach unto them that dwell on the earth, and to every nation and kindred and tongue and people, saying with a loud voice, Fear God, and give glory to him, for the hour of his judgment is come, and worship him that made heaven and the earth and the sea and the fountains of water. This is not the message to the Hebrews. This is the message that the Hebrews will give to the world, because it's not an angel that is going to spread the news, but it will be us, if we are found faithful, to spread the news. And to how many will we go? To every nation, every kindred, every tongue, every people. There will be no exception. You see, like God gave the beast and the image of the beast its time before he comes and gives his message. Because here we have today, the news is all over the world. There is just one news. There is one thing that takes them all in prison. And this is this great idol that all worship and fear him. And now here that all world is bowing down before the image of the beasts. The Hebrews, those who have been called, they will give a message and say, don't fear an idol because he has no life in it. He can do you nothing. Fear God and give glory to him, for the hour of his judgment is come. Now, yes, we are living in the hour of judgment. Everyone must take his final decision. It's not that we should fear God in the way we fear the idol. No. To fear God means to fear to not be dependent on him in this hour of judgment. Because everyone who is dependent on God, everyone who worships God has no fear because he is in love. He is in reason. While he who is in fear is the one that is dependent on humans and on the idols of the humans and of the devil. So to fear God means just to pay attention, not to be from someone else dependent, not to worship someone else except God. Because that's the only person we are dependent on. That's the only one that our life exists from. He made us, and he made the earth, the sea, and the fountain of water. They did not make themselves like in the theory of evolution. No, they are made by God. So those who worship God are the free ones, and those who worship the devil and his image and the beast, the state power, they will have to fear God because his judgment will come upon them. Now, the message is accompanied by a second messenger or a second message that says, Babylon is fallen, that great city, because she made all nations drink of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. Now, what is Babylon? Now, some people say Babylon is the Catholic Church or the Pope. No. Babylon is, according to the Bible, the whole wickedness, as we have seen in Zechariah 5 described. It's the woman that includes all wickedness, not only the wickedness of certain churches or of certain people, it includes everything. Because there are only two things in this earth: wickedness, lawlessness, and the law, and godliness. Those are the two opposites. And if Babylon is the wickedness, it doesn't matter which wickedness you are in, which lawlessness you are in, you're still lost. So Babylon is included everything, even these messages, what we see today through all the world going about this danger of this different variants of idols. That's Babylon. That's confusion. One day they are mild, then they are not so mild, then they are killing, then they are not killing, then you have to do this, and then you have to do that. That is Babylon. It's all wickedness. So Babylon is the summary of all wickedness, while the people of God, the church of God, is the summary of godliness, the summary of being in the law. Now, what does it mean that Babylon is fallen? It means that its deceptiveness is put as its deceptiveness is revealed. You see, Babylon uses its power on spiritual level when you see It's deceitfulness. Because the mind and the spirit of man was not made for lies. So in the moment you see that someone has lied to you, in the moment you see the lie, you will reject it. If you see a lie and you don't reject it, then something is wrong with you. Because it's a natural God given in our construction that we should be against the lie. So when we preach the first angel's message, and it has not been preached yet to the whole world, it will be preached after the Hebrews have gone through their examination. When we have gone through our examination, then these three angels, these three messages will be preached to the whole world. And as today the whole world is full of the sea of this idol that starts with sea, the whole world will be full of Christ, will be full of the glory of God, so that everyone can choose. For the most, it will be just a witness, but for many, it will be their salvation. Because they will see in these two messages the truth that unveils or reveals the lie. And when we see the lie, we will stop following it. That means Babylon is fallen, But it is not the end. There comes a third angel. This is all a message. These are three different messages. That's why there are three angels. Follow them, saying with a loud voice, if any man worship the beast and his image and receive his mark in his forehead or in his hand. So here it's saying with a loud voice, if you receive or worship the beast and his image and receive his mark in his forehead or in his hand, what do? The same shall drink of the wine of the wrath of God, which is poured out without mixture into the cup of his indignation, and he shall be tormented with fire and brimstone in the presence of the holy angels and in the presence of the Lamb. Now, is that a strong saying? Yes, it is. But friends, those who participate today in this Babylonian worship is nothing else than murdering or killing. And he who kills and murders must come to a judgment. And when we read the angels, how they respond to the judgments of God, to the 7 plagues, they say, God, you're righteous, because blood have they shed, and you give them blood to drink. Today, everyone that participates in this very, very spread idolatry, who stands at the door and of the churches and lets in only those who are safe, are murderers. They are killers. They support the devil's work. And Jesus says, he who does not love his brother kills him. Yes, it is a killing. It is a destroying. And it's not a killing just physically in the way that we take a knife or we put something into the physical of another one. No. It's a killing because we give a message to the fellow brother or to the people that we are together with those who do the wrong. So God's wrath does not come because he likes to be angry. It does not come because he wants the evil for us. It only comes as the result that you are a killer and you kill those around you, and you don't stop when you see the truth. That's why it says further, and the smoke of their torments ascend up forever and ever. And they have no rest day nor night, who worship the beast and his image, and whosoever receiveth the mark of his name. So there is no rest for those who receive the mark or who follows and worship its image. Because, you see, we must define once again worship, and I repeat this, if a computer had to have worship, it is his connection to the source of his need. Everything that a computer does is the result that he took the power. To worship the beast or its image is to do what someone tells you to do, is to be dependent on them. What is worship of men? The connection to the source, to God or to Satan and to humans. For how many activities does he need a source? For all. There is no thought, no action that one human does that he does not depend on an outside source of him. His mind must be connected. He must have an orientation after someone. He can never orient after himself. That's why every action, every thought is the result of worship. Either Satan and humans or God. Now, in these last days, religious people, the Hebrews, are in a danger because they reduce worship to a religious issue. By example, my church says it's about the day of worship. Now, how can we reduce worship to just a day? Or how can we reduce worship just to going to church or not going to church or doing some service on a day or the other? How can that be? How can the people that call the name of God be so blind, reducing worship to something that is just included in worship? Yes, the day of worship is included, but it's not reduced to it. That's why I don't want to say the numbers, but there will be millions that will be lost because they have understood worship just to be a religious issue. Now, we know that worship is dependency on God. Adam, when he was created, in the moment of his creation, he was dependent on God, and he would have ever remained like that if he would have not deceived himself. There was the snake, and he deceived himself, believing he could be God. And in that moment, he died. Exactly like God has promised him he would die. At that moment, he was separated from God, never able to worship God again. All his descendants are born in a total inability to worship God. There's no one that can worship God. They all worship the devil and humans. And this crisis, it is just seen that it is so. But God sent his Son, who came into this life of Adam. And this is the theme of the book of Hebrews, and we will go through it and study it in depth. He came into this world. He was conceived by his father, so he had the right identity, so he could connect to God from conception, exactly like Adam from creation. He took over him sinful nature because he had to destroy that what gave the dragon the power in our lives. Satan has only power in our lives because we have his own deception in our hearts. Now he hides himself in the back of the states, in the back of the beast. And we know the beast's power is a governmental power. But it is dominated by the woman that is a religious, a spiritual power. In order to overcome that spiritual power, you must do something in yourself that must be killed. Jesus killed it in himself. We will see that he destroyed the whole human being because this being could not come back to God. And he came out of the grave as a new creation, as the second Adam, having a total new identity, the Son of God. He is the image of God. And this is that what God offers through his messengers to all the captives of Satan here. There is a way of escape, friends, to not bow down anymore in front of humans and of the devil and of his image. That is only possible by faith. So by faith, we come into the true worship, taking the life of Christ, entering the Sabbath rest. Because we have seen those who have worshipped the beast have no rest day and night. No, because there is no rest in wickedness. And the Sabbath as a day is just a sign of that. It's not the thing in itself, but Christians and Adventists have made it a thing in itself. That's why it is so deceptive made by the devil. So the beast, as we have seen it here, has ecclesiastical power, but it has no governmental power over the whole world. It has it for certain places. But it must come to power through all the governments of this earth. The 10 kings represent the whole world. So all governments and the beast only come to power to put the whole world into their slavery is by the image of the beast. Without this image of the beast, they could have no power to rule over the humans because they would not follow them. So they need an image of the beast in order to come to power. And without this little invisible thing, there would be no crisis today on earth. And the governments could not implement. Because you see, with all the other religions that have passed in the past, through communism, through different ideologies, they haven't got to the place where they could rule the world. They could do things in certain countries where they have dictatorship, but they could not take in the world. They needed to take in the world something that affects the whole world. And that should be more than just an ideology, something. It has to become a physical thing. It has to become something that puts in danger every human being's life. And by this, they come to power. No image, the beast would never come to power. Neither all the governments, what they do today, they only come through power, through this image. That's why it's needed. Because around the image is, of course, a message, is a religion about it. And according to this religion, you need to give yourself a mark, a new identity. Like people, when they get sick nowadays, they do some testing, so they might get half a year entrance by being healed. Now it's still a compromise, because what did you test? What did you test? You just you just receive a digital identity. You think you're free, but actually you sold yourself. Now it's not that you cannot come out of it yet, because you haven't. It has not been put yet on your hand and your forehead. But when it is on your hand, on your forehead, when that number of the beast that the beast gives you, or the governments, because they work together as one, then that is the final choice. There is no turning back. There is no returning ever from this. That's why the warning of the 3 angels is so important. It is our day that everyone will take his final decision, and it will be sealed with that mark put on the hand or on the forehead, and that is represented by worshiping sun on the first day of the week instead of the 7th day of the week. But the days are only a sign, as they always were in Bible. They are not the thing in itself. But unfortunately, Christians are confused by the devil and they see the thing in itself as being the issue. No, a sign was never in itself the issue. That what he represents is the issue. So we have this mission to be the salt and light of the earth with a final invitation and warning. That's our mission. And what is the content of our message? Well, it is the huge effort of God to get them to their goal to receive the promise. So we must help to bring to human sight what God has done. He sends the prophets and the angels to help us out of the deception in which we are born. And the center of the content of the epistle to the Hebrews is Christ, who should it be else, as a sacrifice, as a high priest, as a judge. So all these three functions Christ has. And we will occupy ourselves with this study while we will studying the content of the book to the Hebrews. And how is the goal achieved? No one can achieve the goal except by faith. And that is the faith of Jesus. That is, we must implement in our life a faith that is beyond our faith. That is that faith that makes us to withstand sin, even to blood. That faith that will enable us to pass through this last conflict and make us the light into the world. I want to be among them, and I hope you too. So let us come together and study and go deep into this so that we might be found faithful and victorious and glad that we could be in His service now and through all eternity. Amen.